Let's get more analysis. William Lawrence is waiting for us, Professor of Politics and International Affairs at the American University. William is a specialist on Algeria. We've spoken many times about Algeria, William, and it's always enlightening to speak to you. Can I I think maybe perhaps I'm being cynical, but let me put this question to you. Why is Macron going now? This is just about gas and trying to get out of the hole that France is in because of the Russian sanctions, isn't it?
I wouldn't say that. I'd say that's a major priority, but I don't think that's why he's going now. He's going now because he was just reelected. And this is his sort of inaugural venture towards Algeria, as he did the first time he was elected, to try to reset relations. Most of the troubles that the first guest was talking about happened last September, so almost a year ago. And Le Drian had been there in the interim time, and Macron had made some important statements in the winter time about French war crimes in Algeria. And so there's been a warming that's been going on over the last year. And this is the culmination of that. It's they keep saying not a state visit, but after the withdrawal of ambassadors, an official visit with 90 people in tow is a major thing. It was significant that Macron went to the martyrs monument today, the 1 million Algerian martyrs in the war. And I do not think Macron will be able to, repair the wrongs of history or issue a full apology today for a number of reasons, including French domestic politics. But he can make gestures in the right direction. He can talk to Algerians, in a way that's constructive and say, any remaining differences, we can study them, we can work on them, let's do better than we have before. And at this critical moment, if I could just say one quick thing about gas, it's not really about the supply of gas because Algeria has limited supply in existing contracts. It's about the price of gas. And France and Algeria have been feuding over the price of gas going back 40 years, arguments made that France has charged too little, charged too much, and getting through the winter in Europe. It's not necessarily going to be the gas supply, but the price of gas that matters. And Algeria will lock in that price with its contracts, which it was recently renegotiating with Italy and problematizing with Spain. And France wants to be on the right side of these contracts.
William, you take your time and state what you've got to state, sir, because people want to hear what you're saying, not what I'm saying. Let me come back to gas, though, because I'm really still convinced this is the whole issue. We've spoken before about Algeria's potential. Is this the beginning, perhaps, of a moment where Algeria can start to realise that potential by mounting by creating a market for itself, by cashing in on its resources because of what's happening in Ukraine?
In my classes on North African politics, I often ask if Algeria is a rentier state. And the correct answer, as I've told students many times, is when the price of gas is high, we get the black curse. And when the price of gas is low, Algeria starts talking about reform and diversification. And Algeria has that very issue right now. Will Algeria just continue to produce gas with the existing technologies under the existing contracts? Or is it going to take the windfall of money that it's getting because of the global price rises and invest both in diversifying its economy and in producing gas at a much higher level? Algeria could produce twice the gas it's currently producing for Spain, Italy, and France, its major customers, if it would simply invest in the sector more than it's currently doing. And let me also say, a big focus of this trip is startups, entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. But you may remember that as Algeria began to open up some years ago, a lot of Franco-Algerians, second, third generation, went back to Algeria and tried to start up businesses. And many of them left again because Algeria hasn't reformed economically. And that's directly linked to what I was just talking about, because Algeria needs to reform and open up its economy in a way that will help startups. And this visit could nudge things in that direction, particularly if France announces some new investments and announces that it will help Algeria with its economic reforms.
It brings me nicely to my final question, William, because obviously the bitterness of the past, which is still there, which is very evident, you don't need to scratch the surface much to find it, is there. Healing that is difficult. Is what you've just suggested, that investment, that building for future relationships, perhaps key to how the wounds between France and Algeria will be eventually healed?
I think it's almost the other way around. They've been talking a lot for the last year about turning the page of history. And my response has been, well, you have to write the page of history before you turn it. And I believe that both France and Algeria are held back by their past and can only really have a modern relationship if they do reconcile that historical memory, as Macron has been correctly talking about for 5 years, but hasn't really invested in actions to match those words. So they do have to reconcile how many Algerians were killed, how many Algerians were tortured and displaced, what happens during the war, and get that record straight, including guilt and reparations that could be considered on both sides of the ledger. And then I think once Algeria and France fully understand and honor that history, they'll both be able to move forward. And let me just say, there's a similar issue in French history, like American history. There are similar examples, but France never even really got its World War II history completely sorted and completely honored and reconciled. So there's a lot of things in the past that we can't really turn away from. We have to kind of sort them as we move forward, and then it will help us move forward faster.
William Lawrence, as ever, thank you, sir, very much indeed for joining us and sharing your insight with us. We always appreciate it. Thank you, sir, very much indeed.
My pleasure.